Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while. Today we'll be looking at how I sculpted this character, starting from the armature to the final piece you see right here. You can see my earlier video, Portrait with an Attitude, where I did initial exploration of the face and expression of this character. And for those who keep asking me to sculpt Armored Titan, stay tuned, it's coming up next. For the anatomical reference, I used this 3D Toils Écorché image, but as you may see, I did elongate the legs for more stylized proportions. I'm taking measurements, and you can use whatever you have on hand, whether it's a ruler, calipers, or the hand itself. I then measured and cut the wire to size and bent it into shape. This is about 16-inch tall figure, and I used 9-gauge aluminum wire for the main base. Double checking the lines with the reference and wrapping it with a thinner wire for stability. I cut and bent some more wire and tried to attach it to the other piece. As you can see, it's rather wobbly, so I secured it with some epoxy putty. For the base, I glued some pine board with a sheet of plywood on top. The armature goes into the base and adding some foam pieces on the tips of the wire so it doesn't accidentally poke my eyes. Adding steel wire that I'm using like a splint to add some extra support and stability. Then just beefing up the armature with some foil. You can see the headpiece of the armature is detachable, and you later see the hook on the back that it slides into. And now we are finally ready to start sculpting. Building out overall shape of the head and making the mouth, eye, and eyebrow guidelines. Cutting out some space for the eyes, and essentially carving out some variation of Loomis' head. Now measuring where the eyes will go. And since this is more of a stylized sculpture, the eye is gonna be on the larger side. Adding overall shape of the eyes and adding some more clay to the cheekbones. After that, I'll add the nose and the mouth and keep refining the shape of her face. Now I'm adding the eyelid, which I will lower even further since she will have her head slightly raised. You'll see me continuously adding bits of clay and then blending it with either my hand or with the rake tool, in this case made out of guitar string. Here I'm raising the nose crease along with the tip of the mouth a little bit higher to give her a smirky look. Realizing that her cheeks sunk in a bit too much, so adding some mask to them. After finishing eyelids and the lashes, I inserted a piece of wire as a placeholder for the cigarette, just to make sure it looks about right, and then added eyebrows and the ear. Now with the ear done, I'm tilting her head and it's time to have it rejoin the rest of the armature. After pulling the head out of the temporary wooden block, I reattached it with the armature And you can see I have a little loop on the back that helps it stay in place as I secure it with some epoxy putty. And it's time to build out the body. You can see I'm adding clay, then blending and carving it with various tools, trying to establish some basic shapes. For the most part, I didn't bother much with anatomical accuracy since most of her body is covered with clothes. Here I use tools made out of wood, guitar strings, as well as coping saw blades. But as you may see, mostly just my fingers. Now that I have a decent boot shape, I start working on details. I'm creating layers and adding depth either by adding some clay, like you see me doing here with the sole, or at times just carving out the clay along the line, and cleaning things up here and there. Now adding this large tongue on top. Initially I planned to have two straps over it holding it in place, but then decided to have one attached directly to it to add some variety. And that's what you see me doing here. Moving on to the pants. Close sculpting is still something I'm trying to improve. You'll see me going back and forth with sculpting folds and wrinkles, but I pretty much follow the same process. Carving some clay out, adding some back in, and trying to find shapes that flow and look aesthetically pleasing. Here I'm adding a knee pad to one of the legs to add some variety and asymmetry. Now I'm sculpting this edge to the pants. Initially I planned to attach some of her tools here, but it didn't turn out to look as good as I imagined, so I left it be. Now I am back refining those folds on the bottom of the pants. I ended up redoing those multiple times, and here you'll see me adding, removing, and shifting chunks of clay to see what works best. For the jacket I used a bunch of clay cutouts to essentially get a pattern. And this is what I got, a little Frankenstein's monster looking jacket. And I used it to cut out the cleaner version, which I went ahead and wrapped around the body of the character. Finally getting those arms in their position. After covering them with clay, I moved back to the head to sculpt the hair. And just like with everything else, I started by blocking out overall shape and then added some minor details. After the hair was done, I added zipper teeth to the jacket, then continued with the sleeves. And of course, my struggle with folds went on. Moving on to the welding torch. Yes, if you were wondering, that's what that thing was meant to be. I attached a simple piece of bent wire to the tip of the arm and started sculpting over it. At this point, I thought it would be cool to make it in the shape I made it, which ended up looking more like a gun than a welding torch. Once that's done, I started sculpting hand around it. I made the handle a bit too small, so the hand turned out on the smaller side as well. For the trolley cart, I made this simple armature. The tape there barely provides any support, but that's more than enough for my use case. Here I'm using hard gray Chavant NSP, and when warmed up, it sticks to pretty much anything. Once cooled off, most of the time it can support itself just fine. For the canisters, I rolled a thin piece of cardboard, wrapped it with some wire and then clay. Smoothed the clay until I got a decent cylinder shape and added some details. Once the canisters are securely fastened to the trolley, I'm off to sculpting the second hand. And finally attaching a couple of hoses from the canisters to the torch. I covered the thin aluminum wire in clay and positioned it into place. And we are done!